Kilimanjaro is a snow-covered mountain 19,710 feet high and is said to be the highest mountain in Africa. Close to the western summit, there is the dried and frozen carcass of a leopard. No one has explained what the leopard was seeking at that altitude.
Good evening. A writer on safari in Africa develops a dangerous wound from a thorn prick and lies awaiting his slow death. The loss of physical capability causes him to look inside himself at his memories of the past years and how little he has actually accomplished in The Snows of Kilimanjaro, a 1952 American Technicolor film based on The Snows of Kilimanjaro short story by Ernest Hemingway. The film version of the short story was directed by Henry King, written by Casey Robinson, and stars Gregory Peck as Harry, Susan Hayward as Helen, and Ava Gardner as Cynthia Green, a character actually invented just for the film. Considered by Hemingway to be one of his finest stories, The Snows of Kilimanjaro was first published in Esquire magazine in 1936, and then republished in the fifth column and the first 49 stories in 1938. 20th Century Fox bought the rights to the story in June 1948, paying $125,000. Humphrey Bogart, Richard Conte, and Marlon Brando were all reported to be under consideration for the male lead, as was Dale Robertson, while Gene Tierney and Anne Francis were considered for the Ava Gardner role. Gregory Peck initially resisted taking the role because of an earlier Ernest Hemingway adaptation he had appeared in. The Macomber Affair had been a box office flop. Ava Gardner married Frank Sinatra shortly before production began on the film. He wanted her by his side in New York, and to placate them, the schedule was rearranged so that all her scenes could be shot in 10 days, to which Sinatra agreed. On the last day of shooting, things didn't go as planned, and Gardner was forced to spend an extra day on the set. In her autobiography, Gardner says, "I knew Frank would give me holy hell about that, and he did." The film was shot on location in Nairobi, Kenya, Cairo, Egypt, the French Riviera, and stage work was done at Stage 14 on 20th Century Fox Studios. During production, on April 8, 1952, when Peck was carrying Gardner for a scene in the film, Peck wrenched his knee, and production had to be postponed for 10 days while he recovered in his Pacific Palisades, Los Angeles home. On top of that, actress-singer Hildegard Neff came down with influenza in the studios. Scenes with Neff singing 2 Cole Porter songs, Just One of Those Things, and Alles war so leer, You Do Something to Me, were shot but not used for the final cut, although the latter remained in the German version. Although there was some impressive second unit work shot in Kenya, the principal actors shot their African scenes in Hollywood. Roy Ward Baker directed the location footage, while Henry King directed all the studio footage. The bullfight sequences were stock footage taken from Fox's 1941 film, Blood and Sand. Helped by a star-studded cast, the film was one of the most successful films of the early 1950s and earned a whopping $12.5 million at the box office, extremely high for that period. It was much acclaimed by critics, although some vary in their opinion of it, ranging from simply plotting to much maligned. The cinematography was highly acclaimed in particular, and even the sophisticated interiors were praised. Bosley Crowther of the New York Times described the cinematography as magnificent and exciting, and said that the overall production, in wonderful color, is full of brilliant detail and surprise, and the mood of nostalgia and wistful sadness that is built up in the story has its spell. He praised Peck's character for his burning temper and melancholy moods, although he said that Ava Gardner was pliant and impulsive in a role as soggy and ambiguous as any in the film. Bowker's Directory described it as having plenty of action and romance and stated that it was the popular celebrity film of its time. Hemingway, who disliked the typical Hollywood happy ending, accepted the money for the film, but he could not bring himself to view it. He disliked the film because he thought it cannibalized material from his other work to pad the story. He told friend Ava Gardner that the only things he liked about it were her and the hyena. It has been reported, but not confirmed, that director Henry King mimicked the hyena on the soundtrack. The Snows of Kilimanjaro was nominated for 2 Oscars at the 25th Academy Awards for Best Cinematography and Best Art Direction. It remains today a favorite among classic film fans. Until next time, this is Paul Gannis. The popcorn is hot. Enjoy the film.
You know, darling, I think that dancer likes me.
Oh, if the dancer likes you, I like you too, darling.
Yes, but his liking is new. And yours is old. An old, old story that's ending.